An Impossible Enchantment. Once upon a time, there once lived a king who was much loved by his people, and he too loved them warmly. He led a very happy life, but he had the greatest dislike to the idea of marrying and never felt the slightest wish to fall in love. His subjects begged him to marry, and at last he promised to try to do so. So he decided to travel the land in hopes of meeting a lady love. So he set out in search of love, attended by only one chamberlain who, though not clever, had very good sense. The king explored several countries, doing all he could to fall in love, but in vain. At the end of 2 years' journey, he turned his face towards home. They suddenly hear the piercing sound of shrieking cats. The awful noise drew nearer until they see 100 huge Spanish cats rush through the trees. They run close together, all running the same direction. They are closely pursued by 2 enormous apes in purple suits, mounted on English mastiffs, and deliver shrill blasts into toy trumpets.
I'm an enormous ape in a purple suit on an English mastiff.
They are followed by 20 or more dwarves mounted on wolves and cats, all dressed in purple silk costumes like the apes. The king and his chamberlain stood in bewilderment at such an unusual scene. A moment later, a beautiful young woman mounted on a tiger came in sight. Once he laid eyes on her, he was enchanted. His heart was gone. Who was that vision of beauty? To his joy, he saw that one of the dwarves had fallen behind the rest. Who was that woman riding the tiger?
Princess Mutinosa, the daughter of the king whose country you are in. She is very fond of hunting, and that she is in pursuit of rabbits.
Which way to this king's court? Quickly now! He reached the capital in a couple of hours. He presented himself to the king and queen immediately. When mentioning his own name and that of his country, he was received with open arms. Congratulations on a successful hunt, princess! She would not answer a word. Sometimes she seemed about to speak, but whenever this was the case, her father or mother at once took up the conversation. She is so lovely. Have you not seen such a vision in your life? Why are you so vexed? Surely the princess is beautiful enough.
She certainly. But to be happy in love, something more than beauty is required. To tell the truth, her expression seems hard to me.
Nonsense. That is just pride and dignity, and nothing is more becoming.
I think the care taken to prevent her from speaking is suspicious.
The chamberlain's remarks were full of good sense, but this kind of opposition only increases the love in the hearts of men. And the very next day begged for the hand of the Princess Mutinosa. It was granted him on 2 conditions. The first was that the wedding should take place the very next day. The second, that he should not speak to the princess till she was his wife. In spite of his chamberlain's objections, he agreed, so that the first word he heard his bride utter was the
yes
she spoke at their marriage. The chamberlain's fears proved only too true. The young queen made herself most disagreeable to all her court with spite and bad. One day, when riding out, she met a poor old woman walking along the road, who made a curtsy, then walked on. Then the queen cried,
Don't you know that I am the queen? How dare you not make a deeper curtsy? Madam, I have never learnt how to measure curtsies, but I have no wish to fail in proper respect.
She dares to answer. Tie her to my horse and I'll just carry her at once to the best dancing master in the town to learn how to curtsy.
I am protected by fairies. I am protected by fairies.
Tie her up.
Fine, but you've been warned.
But when the queen urged her horse on, he never stirred. In vain she spurred him. Then he turned to bronze.
What in the world?
Bad woman, unworthy of your crown. I wished to judge for myself, and all I have heard of you was true. I have now no doubt of it, and you will see whether the fairies are to be laughed at.
Placida told the fairy queen of Mutinosa's adventures, and the queen proposed to turn Mutinosa into bronze. Placida, however, who was kind and gentle, begged for a milder sentence. So it was settled that Mutinosa should become her slave for life unless she should have a child to take her place.
By rights, you should be my servant, but as you have been raised royally, the change might be too great for you. I shall therefore only order you to sweep my rooms and to wash my little dog.
Mutinosa gave birth to a lovely little girl, and when she was well again, the fairy gave her a good lecture on her past life, made her promise to behave better, and sent her back to the king. Placida now gave herself up entirely to the princess. She thought over which of the fairies she would invite to be godmothers to secure the best gift. And last, she decided on two kindly fairies. That they decided to do all they could for her. They named her Graziella.
You know, dear sisters, that the commonest form of spite or punishment amongst us consists of changing beauty to ugliness, cleverness to stupidity, or a person's form altogether. I think the best plan will be for one of you to give her beauty, the other good understanding, whilst I will undertake that she shall never be changed into any other form.
The two godmothers agreed, and as soon as the little princess had received their gifts, they left. Placida gave herself up to the child's education, and she succeeded well, and little Graziella grew so lovely that, when she was still a child, her fame spread abroad, but too much. One day Placida was surprised by a visit from the fairy queen.
I have heard and been surprised by your treatment to Mutinosa. You treated her very gently while she was with you, and I come now to avenge our wrongs on her daughter. You have ensured she grew lovely and clever and not subject to change of form. I will place her in an enchanted prison, and she shall never leave till she finds herself in the arms of a lover whom she loves. It will be my duty to ensure that never happens.
When she was nearly grown, Graziella was not only most accomplished, but a very sweet girl.
Bonetta, come look! Whatever could that be? It must be a merman. A man, do you say? Let us hurry down to see him nearer.
He carried a wicker basket filled with rare shells, which he presented to the princess.
What a dreadful-looking creature that was! I suppose all men are not like him? No, indeed.
Graziella politely accepted some gifts he had brought. After this, he would come every evening and blow his shell, or dive and play antics under the princess's window. She contented herself with bowing to him from the balcony, but she would never go down to the entrance.
Why, this tower is just the place for us, for we can't live completely out of water.
Bonetta invited them in, and they took up a position in the lower level that is totally filled with water.
No doubt, madam, you have given up living on land to escape crowds of lovers, but my brother is already dying of love for you.
The princess, on this, told her entire history to the mermaid, who assured her how sorry she felt for.
Perhaps someday you may find a way out of your difficulties. I dare say, they are not all as hideous as the first one. We shan't be so dreadfully lonely anymore. Dear me, how helpful young people are, to be sure. But what do you think of the lover you have captivated? I could never love him, but they may be of some use to us.
The mermaid often returned, each time she talked of her brother's love, and each time Graziella talked of her longing to escape from prison. After a little talk, Graziella agreed to show her the inside of the tower. Bonetta stayed below with the mermaid. Being a very clever artist, Bonetta painted a picture of a handsome young man with beautiful curly hair, a fine complexion, and lovely blue eyes. When it was finished, she showed it to Graziella.
I can hardly believe that there could be any man so good-looking in the world. But I don't suppose I shall ever see them, so what is the use? Oh dear, how unhappy I am.
Now this prince had heard of the enchanted tower and was determined to get as near as he could. But the crew thought it too dangerous, and his captain protested.
"You will lead us to certain death. Take anchor on dry land, and I will then seek a kind fairy who has always been most obliging to me."
The prince landed at the nearest point and set off the captain to beg the fairy's advice and help.
I have heard about this matter, and I am going to send of a trusty pigeon to test if there is any weak spot and sneak in.
Lovely princess, I adore you and beg you to accept my heart and to believe there is nothing I will not do to end your misfortunes. Arthur.
You say you love me, but I cannot promise to love you without seeing you. Send me your portrait by this messenger. If I return it to you, you must give up hope. But if I keep it, you will know, Graziella.
After an hour's rest, the trusty little bird was sent back again, carrying a portrait of the prince.
Now, let us lose no more time. I can only make you happy by changing you into a bird. But I will take care to give you back your proper shape at the right time.
Kiss, kiss, little birdie. The princess grew tired, so she lay down on a mossy bank. At the same moment, her enchantment came to an end, and the tower began to rock and to split. Bonetta hurried up to the top so that she might at least perish with her dear princess. Just as she did, the kind fairy arrived with the fairy Placida in a car of Venetian glass drawn by 6 eagles.
Come away quickly! The tower is about to sink!
They found that Queen Mutinosa had passed away some years ago, But her kind husband, King James, still lived on peaceably, ruling his country well and happily. He received his daughter with great delight, and there were universal rejoicings at the return of the lovely princess. Their wedding took place the very next day, and for many days following, balls, dinners, tournaments, concerts, and all sorts of amusements went on all day and all night. The prince and princess lived happily ever after.